Is he saying that he did not bring those documents to that office?
I'm just not going to go beyond what the president said.
Do we know who did bring those documents to the office?
I'm not going to go beyond what the president
But you're
said.
saying you want to be transparent and do things the right way. We're
Yes,
not going to get any more answers.
and his team of lawyers did do that. They did the right thing by turning over the documents to the archives. That's what they did once they realized that they had them and that they were there.
On the documents case, again, you've laid out that the president's lawyers and the special counsel are dealing with the legal side of this. You've now laid out that you have not had a conversation with the president about this. But this was reported Monday. It happened in November. Are you aware of any conversation in the West Wing among others, people other than the president, about disclosing this once it was discovered?
What I can say is I was asked by your colleague if we talked about the documents themselves. The president said he does not know what was in them, right? But also just wanted to clear that up. I understand you guys are going to have a lot of questions on this. I get that. I know you guys are going to have a lot of questions on process and specifics. And what I can tell you is that I'm not going to go beyond what the president laid out. I'm not going to go beyond what my White House counsel colleagues have stated. I would refer you to them for any other specifics or additional information. I want to be prudent here. I want to make sure that we do this in the appropriate way.
We're going to ask them because that's our job.
I understand, and my job is to answer your questions. So here we go. Let's go.
One of the reasons we asked this is because on like day 2 of this administration, when he swore all of you in, the president said, quote, "I'm going to make mistakes. When I make them, I'll acknowledge them, and I'll tell you, and I'll need your help to help me correct them." So you're the one here talking to us about this. That's why we're asking you. So let's just remember that. When he was asked yesterday,
Ed, we don't need to have this. We work very well together.
We do.
We don't need to have this kind of confrontation. Ask your question, and I will answer them the best that I can.
Part of the reason we're laying that out is because you're laying out your part of the job.
I
We're laying out our part of the job.
know,
which
but
is
I'm
to
just
ask the
saying that we
question.
don't need to
know there
have
are people who will
contention.
be
We don't need to be
watching
contentious
when
with me here, Ed.
The president was asked yesterday, but did not answer this part of the question. Why didn't he or someone in the White House inform the American people when these documents were discovered on November 2nd? Did it have anything to do, because people are asking this part of it, did it have anything to do with the fact that the election was just a few days away?
Again, Ed, this is under review by the Department of Justice. It is literally under review right now. As I am talking to you, it is under review. So I'm not going to get beyond the process. I'm not going to get beyond what the president said. Look, the White House counsel, my colleagues in the White House counsel, laid out a very detailed information about what this particular issue on Monday. You all have that. I'm just not going to get beyond that. The Department of Justice is independent, as you know. They're doing a review, and I want to be prudent here. And it would be more appropriate. It would be more appropriate for my colleagues in the White House counsel's office to address this.
Then we welcome them to the briefing room, and we hope they can come soon to discuss this. But there's another thing. There was nothing stopping the President of the United States from disclosing the discovery of these classified documents in his former office before it was under Justice Department review.
What
So
I can
why
tell
didn't he
you,
disclose
what
it?
I can tell you right now is what the president share with you what the president said to all of you, right? Which is he was surprised by this. He definitely, truly respects the process here. And also when it comes to classified, he takes classified documents very seriously. And again, I'm going to leave you to the information that the president provided to all of you, and also just yesterday, in front of many of you or your colleagues, and also what my White House counsel colleagues shared on Monday.
This, the leaders of the Senate Intelligence Committee today, like they did after the raid at Mar-a-Lago, have asked that the Director of National Intelligence conduct a national security assessment of this apparent discovery of classified information. Has the president asked for one, or are you aware of the ODNI?
I would refer you to Department of Justice here. This is, again,
Department
this
of
is,
Justice doesn't handle national security.
I would refer you to Department of Justice on this particular issue that's being reviewed currently.
On whether the Office of Director of
I
National
would-
Intelligence is
I would-
conducting a national security
When it
assessment?
comes to the review that we are currently speaking of right now, of these classified documents, I would refer you to Department of Justice.
Apart from those classified documents, the president did say that he was unaware of records being brought to that specific office. So aside from those, has he asked his lawyers, has he looked into whether any other documents have been taken to any other office that he has, whether in Wilmington or Rehoboth? Has there been any kind of like audit that's been done of where there may be others that he doesn't know about?
I'm just not going to speak to this. I'm going to let the process continue. It's an ongoing process, and so I'm just not going to speak to this from here. It is more prudent and more appropriate for my colleagues at the White House Counsel.
Is there a log showing how many times the president has been to that office during, his vice president, when he was vice president, etc.? Is there a log showing the times that he traveled there?
Traveled where?
To that office.
To the
Yes, the Biden-Pence, yes.
You mean since he's been vice president? No. Oh, since he left as vice president?
Yes.
I do not know of such a log.
Nothing.
Look, I'm not sure. You're just trying to see how many times he's gone to the Penn Biden Center or office. I don't have anything to share about how he's. I mean, at least for the last 2 years, right? You guys have been very aware of where he goes, right? Because he has a protective pool that travels with him at all times. So I can only speak to the last 2 years. When he was a citizen, right? After becoming vice president, I cannot speak to his movements there, where he's been, or how many times he was there. As you know, he worked at University of Pennsylvania, so clearly he was there often. But as president, you guys are very much aware of his movements and where he goes and the trips that he takes because he is indeed president of the United States. So I can't speak to after that or before that.
You spoke of the legal aspect of it. There is also a political aspect to this as well. There are some Republicans who are grabbing onto this cloud of documents that have been reported. What do you believe will happen? How will the work for the American public go forth with Republicans already talking about investigations? Already, Marjorie Taylor has been screaming impeachment for the longest, and now with this, she's saying impeachment. How does the work of the American public move forward as now documents are reported that were in an office connected to Joe Biden?
Again, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but the more prudent thing to do is to make sure that my colleagues are dealing with this, my colleagues in the White House Counsel office, and I want to respect the process. This is an ongoing process, as you all know, that is being reviewed by the Department of Justice, and I'm just not going to speak beyond that.
I'm talking about the politics.
I know you're talking about the
politics.
politics.
Not just the legal, but I'm talking about the
I know,
politics.
I understand. I'm just not going. There is an ongoing process that is being reviewed by the Department of Justice. I'm just not going to speak beyond that.
Why then, how is it possible that the White House did not reveal the presence of these documents prior to the election when they were found?
Again, the president spoke to this personally yesterday. You heard him at the press conference. He laid out what he knew, and he talked about how important and how he sees this as a serious matter when it comes to classified documents and information. He talked about about how he was surprised to learn about the records that had been found there, and he laid out his process and his thoughts. I'm just not going to go beyond that. Again, we released information that was very transparent, meaning the information that you all got received from the White House Counsel's office. And I know you all are going to have a lot of questions. I get that and I understand that, but I'm not going to go beyond the process that's currently happening at the DOJ.
Does it undercut the president's promise of transparency that these documents were not revealed for several months after the White House discovered them?
But look, so when his lawyers realized that these documents were there, they turned them over to the archives. They did the right thing. They turned them over. All I can say is what the president said yesterday. I would refer to his comments. But they did the right thing by, once they learned of them, they turned it over. They turned it over to the archives.
Tell the public about it, Claire.
Again,
That's the question.
I understand the question, but there is an ongoing process. It's being reviewed by the Department of Justice. Just when it is appropriate for us to say more, we will. Otherwise, I would refer you to the White House Counsel's office.
I do want to be very clear about something you said, make sure I understand you. Following up on one of my colleagues, who asked you, you have not spoken to the president about this? Weren't you traveling with him
Well,
when
no,
he made this public
no,
statement?
the way I heard the question is, have you talked to the president about the documents? And he doesn't know what's in the documents. That's the way I heard the question, so that's the way I was answering the question.
Talk to him about the revelation of these documents.
Yes, we've talked
Okay.
about the CBS story, we talked about the revelation of the documents, obviously. But about the documents itself, what's in them, that is something that the president doesn't even know, and I'm just going to leave it there.
Okay, has he conveyed to you when he was briefed, and if not, can you go back and get that answer for us?
I've not talked to the president about that. What I can tell you is I know you all have a lot of questions. There is an ongoing process here, and so I'm just going to let the process
One more
move
quick
forward.
follow. I want to let you respond to former Vice President Mike Pence, who talked about what he and some other Republicans are calling a double standard with the Department of Justice. Mr. Pence said the kind of double standard that we see being practiced by the Biden administration in the wake of this incident in the Justice Department, I think is exactly what undermines public confidence in our justice system.
Again, as soon as his lawyers realized these documents were there, they did the right thing and they turned over the documents to their archivists. That's what they did as soon as they realized the documents were there. And his team is cooperating fully with the review. Again, there's a review happening by the DOJ, and we're just going to let the process move forward.
Great.
I'm going to go around. I'll come back.
Thanks, Corinne. Just to follow up on Franco's question, given the position you're holding right now, there are no assurances you can provide at this point that there are no other classified documents out there in any other office and or home.
Again, this is an ongoing process, so I'm going to let the process continue. It is being reviewed by the Department of Justice, and I'm just going to leave it there.
And you referenced the council's statement that there are limitations to what you all can say at this point in time. Do those limitations, just for clarity's sake, extend to literally everything beyond what the special counsel said on Monday night and what the president said last night?
There's the White House counsel. My colleagues are here to answer questions on this particular issue, and I am just going to let them speak to this. They put out on Monday a very informative, transparent statement about this particular issue. So I'm going to let them speak to this any further. But as for me, as for here, I'm just not going to go beyond what's happening currently.
And just one last one. The president alluded to it last night, you kind of have as well, the idea of once this is kind of all over or wrapped up, there will be more information, there will be more details. Do you have a plan for that? How should we expect that additional information to come? In terms of, will you detail everything you know once this is done? How does that all work?
So as the president told all of you yesterday, we are committed to doing the right thing here, and we'll provide further details at appropriate time, and that's all I can share at this time.
On these documents, how could anyone be that irresponsible? Isn't that what this president says about mishandling classified documents?
The president spoke to this personally. He spoke to this personally, and he believes that classified documents and information should be taken seriously. He takes them seriously, and he was surprised to learn by any records have been. I disagree. Here's what happened. Once
Then why
his.
is there a Justice Department?
Well, let me explain to you the process. Here's what happened when his lawyers found out that the documents were there. They immediately turned them over to their archives.
But they were
But
there
they
in the first
immediately
place. I understand
turned them
that
over
they-
to the
you say they
archives.
did the right thing
I'm not
when they
gonna
figured it out.
go into specifics, but what I am reiterating to you is what you heard from the president yourself, Peter, which is how he saw the process and how he respects and truly respects and takes this very seriously, and when he knew, and how surprised he was by it, and the actions that the right actions that the lawyers took. Again, this is under investigation, is under review by the Department of Justice, and we're going to let that process continue.
How can President Biden be trusted moving forward with America's secrets?
Because his lawyers, his team did the right thing.
But he had a closet with
His
classified
lawyers
information in
did
it
the
that
right.
they found. How did it get there?
Again,
Did the
he
lawyers
did.
do
He
the
was
right thing?
surprised that the records were there. He spoke to this
But they were
personally.
there.
He was surprised that the records were there, and when his lawyers found out and his team found out that they were there, they turned it over to their archives, and now it's being reviewed by the Department of Justice.
And
I just ask if you have any information about why the president's personal attorneys were at the Penn Biden Center in the first place. Were they looking for something specific? Was there something specific they were doing going through these documents? It just seems like to send, if it was just routine moving stuff, to send a personal attorney to do that.
I would
is a little-
refer you to the White House counsel's very extensive kind of information on Monday that they provided, so I refer you to that.
Question, just following up on April's really good point. She, in her question, brought up the notion that, President Biden was really former Vice President Joe Biden during the period in which these documents were found. And can you tell us how many other offices there may have been? I realize that you can't say whether they're being searched or whether there is any sort of look for documents, but how big is the scope of additional offices where at that point, former Vice President was, doing work?
Look, this is an ongoing process, and I'm just going to be prudent here, and it would be more appropriate for my colleagues to answer, my colleagues at the White House counsel's office to address this. Again, I want to respect the process, and so again, I would refer you to them.
I was going to say one quick follow on that. Obviously, he said he was surprised about these documents being found. Has he expressed like any other emotion in response to these?
You heard directly from the president yesterday about this particular issue. He answered it in a personal way. Again, I would refer you to his response and how he saw the issue. I just don't have anything else to share beyond what the president shared with you and the American people yesterday. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.